Oh, yeah. Welcome out. This is the Remix Morning Show. Right here on Black Liberation Media. In case you didn't know, I'll go by the name of the Ear Doctor. Right here, right now, giving it to you on this March 3rd. Yes, that's my word. We are here with no fear on the agenda, so y'all can remember who's coming through stomping. You know her name is Renee Johnston.
I want to know if you thought of that before you started.
No. The value of my mind, as Ricky says, the value of my mind. Oh, freestyle. Man. What's good, Renee?
Life is lifing, man. But I'm here, so I figure I shouldn't complain.
For everybody, life is life, and it feel like right now.
Yeah, man.
I tell you.
Yeah.
Ugh, man.
I try to live by the rule of like, once you wake up, everything else is like extra. So, you know, once you get to that point where you're up and moving, like it's just gonna do what it do.
Yeah. But guess what? I got my truck back, so.
Oh, look at that! Yes. There we go.
5 months.
Is it at least completely? Is it completely fixed? Is the question.
It's fixed. It is fixed. Listen, ain't even no light on. You know how the light be on, the service light still, and it used to be like, all I gotta do is unplug the battery, a service light to go out. But yeah, now it's on. I got to rock a 54th birthday party. Which was dope. She loved New Edition and Rakim and Airbnb and Rakim, so I played like all the Airbnb, Rakim, and New Edition. Girl, I got a secret. See if you could guess. Oh, that's my shit. Anyway,
I am a fan of Is the name of that song? Did you get it yet, or Ooh My Secret?
Ooh My Secret.
Oh,
okay. Yeah. Did you get it yet? Ooh, my secret. Okay, let me stop. I just took myself back to the party. She came in on Candy Girl. Big up to Sister Crystal. I got to DJ Black History Month program at the Auburn Avenue Library Saturday morning. It was dope. Bunch of kids was getting it in. Big up to the African Center Schools, Quilombo and TSK. They had their kids on their stage rocking out. So that was real dope. Great weekend.
That's good. It sounds like you had a good weekend. Good.
Oh man, I did play basketball Sunday. Oh my bad for all y'all seeing snow still. I played basketball outside with my t-shirt on. It was remarkable. It was beautiful outside.
The snow is actually melting much faster this time around. So
I heard it was snowing in DC though yesterday.
Yeah. It's still snowed. It snowed. Yeah. It snowed on Sunday, but it didn't.
What?
It didn't add to the accumulation from the previous days.
Oh, okay.
So.
Okay. Yeah, man. I don't know how y'all do it, but it is what it is. You know.
Yeah.
Other than that, it was World War III started this weekend, didn't it? I mean,
maybe. I mean, they definitely are not. They're definitely not having the experience they planned for, and so I listened to a clip of Hegseth speaking, and he was like, "We're in complete control, and it's going exactly the way we planned," and da 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 da, and then. Like the next 3 clips were them talking about U.S. citizens having to leave countries, that U.S. citizens in Israel have been warned that they can't leave because there's no way out, and the bombing of embassies in multiple places. And I thought to myself, I don't feel like any of the reports that followed this statement were actually indicative that anything in this statement was true.
Mm.
But okay, we can, like, okay, sure, we'll go with like you've got complete control. And he used the word unapologetic with regard to, how they were bombing, and all I could think about was the elementary schools that got hit, and trying to understand, like, how do you as a person with like a brain and a heart and like breath in your lungs fix your face to say like we're unapologetic about what we've done when you've killed dozens of children who were at school.
Children are just numbers. People are just numbers to them. I mean,
Oh, I'm
once
well
you,
aware. Well,
yeah,
they're
yeah. I mean, once
tools.
you think about it that way, it's like, get rid of
Yeah.
some, add some.
And I don't even know if it's even numbers.
Mm.
I really just am of the belief that they just don't think they're people. They have
I mean,
no, they
if
absolutely
if
have
you
no recognition of their humanity.
if
None.
your religion tells you that certain people are certain ways and they going to hell anyway, why would they be people?
But I don't even know if these people are religious. Like, I don't
Uh,
know if Hegseth is religious.
mm. It got to be something in his mind telling him something. I
Or
mean,
something not there. If you're
uh,
just the evil ghoul, like, you know, maybe these things just don't even register.
hmm. Yes, that is me, Ricky. I am breaking down primitive accumulation. Is that right? Did I say that right? Anyway, I hope everybody enjoyed their weekend and they got to check out all the different shows that came over. Renee, who did you have on this for Saturdays or Renee?
So we did a pre-record with Lawrence Grand Prix, and he was on, and we actually talked about a lot of stuff with regard to media and what gets represented and what doesn't get represented as far as like governmental structures. We talked about policy writing. We talked about how, he uses the term the left. And we talk a lot about, like, when you say the left, what exactly does that mean?
Hmm.
And there's so much, I don't even want to use the word confusion. I just feel like there's so much missing from the analysis of like what is actually happening, and
Hmm.
it's a lot of that is intentional. And so Lawrence is really trying to figure out, and we were having a conversation about like how do we break into this system in a way that allows people who are actually giving real information the opportunity to do that. So it was a good talk. Lawrence just be, I don't
He
even know. It's
goes.
like
He goes
it's
in.
like
He goes
bars
in.
and bars and bars. So
He
I
goes
just
in.
can't. Yeah, he just is.
I
Yeah.
feel like politics was created just to play in the people's face. Like you never really, you know, come up like you would like to. We'll give you crumbs here, there, make you feel like you're part of this whole thing, but it's never really designed for us, is it?
No, I mean, well, if you think back to the quote unquote formation of this country, it was rich old white dudes who were
Mm-hmm.
making the rules that were going to benefit them. And there was no inclusion of anyone else. There was no inclusion of women. There was no inclusion of the slaves and black people. There was like none of that
So,
factored. So when you
so
can
is it
when you consider
democracy?
like now, like it's exactly what it was built to be.
So let me give you a bar. Isn't democracy just an illusion of inclusion?
I mean, I guess it depends on if you're talking about real democracy or not. If you're talking about democracy here, yes, 100%. It's an illusion. There,
Mm-hmm.
there is no democracy here.
So there's places where democracy is real. Hmm. Well, Let me ask people somebody else, maybe like come out, K. Franklin.
Peace, peace. How y'all doing?
Good, good. Renee seemed like her sound went out for a second.
Oh, I came on just in the nick of time.
Oh, now she's back. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, you
can't
good.
hear her though.
Sorry,
Renee.
sorry.
Oh, there we go.
The phone started ringing. I just realized that you all couldn't hear anything I was saying. Sorry. I don't know where it
Oh, okay.
stopped.
Oh, it stopped a while ago, Renee.
My
Actually,
bad.
when I said that democracy is an illusion of inclusion, and it seems like we're just chasing after a cat with a long tail.
So before I let Kamal break in, because I know he's got to answer for this one also, I will say that democracy is an illusion as part of our electoral process because we live in a binary political system and it doesn't allow for true democracy. However, if you work, organize, you know, whatever within a democratic space, democracy does exist in those spaces because in those spaces you have multiple people who are allowed to voice and share their opinion and who are allowed voice with decision making. That's what democracy is supposed to be. It's just not what our electoral system
And
is.
and that's when I said name a place where democracy works.
I mean,
Where's the crickets at? I need the cricket sound.
but it's not. You're asking a question about things that you're basing it on how our democracy works here or the
Mm,
way they tell you democracy is supposed to work here. But there are multiple countries where you have systems where the decisions come from the
give me an
community
example.
up.
Example.
An example would be Cuba. An
Okay.
example would be Venezuela, where you have communities that join, that make decisions, and decisions move upward towards the guiding group. Like that's how it's supposed to work. But nobody would ever contemplate those countries because when people talk about democracy within this land, they talk about democracy the way their soul democracy is supposed to be, which is everybody goes to a poll every 4 years and they're able to check their box. And so therefore you had democracy and nobody contemplates all of the trappings that come with the fact that our system is not actually built for everybody to participate in that process.
What you think, Kamal? Or did we
Um,
come in too hot for you? You need to breathe
no,
a little
never
bit.
that, never that. I'm always here to get burnt. So yeah, I mean, I think democracy exists in different places, and there are different examples as named of certain democratic forms of government. I think there are certain Scandinavian countries that practice a form of democracy that's around resource distribution. There are parts of that I like. There's parts of the Cuba system I like. I don't know if I think there is one model of democracy that I think is perfect or the
Mm.
shining star that we need to implement. And the reason for that is not even the fact that the countries themselves are not attempting it. The reason that is that there's imperialism. And so, anytime a country attempts to practice democracy outside the model of capitalist economics, they are torn apart by the imperialist nations who look to control people's resources, land, and who look to stop any experimentation outside of a Western orbit from taking place. So you can't have democracy as long as you have imperialism, because the United States, as Cuba tried to practice its own form of government, something that it thought was going to be more of a direct democracy, have people involved at the level of sharing resources and trading and the rest of it. The United States came and placed an embargo, which makes it almost impossible to practice a democracy where you can see how resources are shared in an equitable way, even though through all of that, Cuba has done a fantastic job of sharing resources, increasing life expectancy, the medical system, and so forth. But, and I know we're going to talk a lot about Iran today. Even in Iran, with some of the things that I probably wouldn't describe as democratic, the attempt to have a government that responds to what they say the masses of their people want, or them representing the masses of their people, totally gets shut down or gets attacked because it is outside of the idea that the West gets to control their resources, namely their oil, or that the West gets to control the politics of the region and gets to implement or put in fake nations next to them. And they're supposed to go like, oh, okay, because you said so. And so anytime a nation attempts to get out of the Western orbit of control, they are attacked. And so you won't have real democracy until you have until you end imperialism. And that won't happen until a lot of these nation states gather together, and individuals and people and masses gather together to organize against imperialism.
So here in America, we just
You have a
organize.
fake democracy, though. I just wanted to put that out there too. I know you're about to. Here you have what you call a bourgeois democracy, right? There's a certain elements of openness in this society, and there's certain elements of voting, but it's all controlled by parties, by elites who give you the idea that somehow you have control of your life, but in reality, you have very little control over deciding certain things, particularly as Black and brown people. And somebody put something in the comment a little earlier. It's like, just because a majority says something, it doesn't make it right, or it doesn't make it really democratic, particularly if that majority is a crazed lunatic, has a crazed lunatic ideology that is around supporting slavery, supporting resource distribution that favors people because of their skin color, that supports oppression, that supports these immigration raids. When you have a majority of white folks who do that, who make still relatively speaking the majority of the country, then it doesn't matter if you have a so-called democracy when that democracy sees its role as murdering and oppressing you. I'm sorry I interrupted. I wanted to get that part out.
But also, I and I've said this before, and I don't remember in answering what question. People also need to remember that a third of the voting population voted, which is not even close to the majority of the country. So this goes back to what I was saying about voting, this like selling of voting as our democratic process. When you have a multitude of things around that process that are preventative, that don't allow people to be able to voice what they want, that don't allow people to be able to actually go out and vote, that don't allow people an actual choice for who they vote for. Like, all of these things play into it. So I still want to caution people about saying like, oh, well, the majority of the country supported this, because that's just not, it's literally not factually correct. The majority of registered, or let's even say the majority of people who could have voted did not vote for this person, period. Like, that's that's data factual. That is not what happened.
Even in addition to that, when you look at polls of what, despite my statement about the way racism and oppression works, when you do look at polls around what people want and what people get, they're totally the inverse, right? People have said for decades that they want healthcare that's affordable, but yet they cannot get that. People for decades have said they wanted raises and minimum wage and so forth, in terms of when they take polls of what the majority of the population says it wants or would be good for it. But yet the government time, and these forever wars, people have usually, when they do polls, they just did a poll, these recent polls around the killing of, or the invasion or the bombing of Iran. Most people have said they don't want that. So you don't get what you want strictly because the majority says it wants it, particularly when other folks control the resources of the country and they get to decide how those resources or what the policy of the country should be. And their idea is that the country should be a place for rich people, particularly rich white folks, but a country for rich people and a country for elites, and that everybody else is here to serve those elites. And so through, again, propaganda and other means, we don't even get to see that when people do want something that could be more democratic in terms of how people get to live their lives, not just vote, but how they get to live their lives, the elite continually shut it down, whether it's a liberal elite or conservative, overtly white supremacist elite.
Speaking of elites, burn it down, Kim Brown.
This guy.
Good
morning.
Good morning.
3-3.
What's 3?
I'm sorry. Today's date.
Oh yeah. It's numerology. What signs you about to drop? Goddess, Earth.
Such an asshole. Well, since you asked, doctor, depending on where you are in the country, there will be a lunar eclipse tonight.
Oh, the red moon,
right? It's going to be a full blood moon. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So in that coincidence, look at the celestial, and then tied to all the earthly madness. It's crazy. Told y'all the cosmos was in shambles.
Yeah, it is. It's
Kim, is there any connection to the 26 also being like 6 divided by 2 is 3? Like, is there any?
Oh, come on, now you about to.
Get him, Kim.
Foxy Brown about to drop that math on me again.
What's today's mathematics, God?
So it's really 333, which is half of 666.
Touché. No, apparently there's a lot of symbol, a lot of coincidental happening surrounding tonight's full moon lunar eclipse and it being on 3/3, and like, was it last week, Ramadan, all that stuff started on the new, you know what I'm saying? So it's crazy, and there's correlations, you know what I mean? Look at the evidence.
The evidence. Hey, so
that's what Ben Crump, every time Ben Crump we get a look at the evidence.
I still have never heard of a major case that Ben Crump actually won in court.
The Henrietta Lacks case just settled. I don't know. That's a win. It's
settled. Yes. Yeah. Well, settlements can be wins. So I'm not. But unlike our man Johnny Cochran, who actually secured,
who actually went into a court. Does Crump go into court? I just feel like everything is settlement.
Everything for settlements. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just don't. I got to look more into his history of like who this dude. I just feel like out of nowhere, boom, he was anointed or something.
I can't stand him, Lord.
Hey man, he know how to do marketing. We need him on our marketing team.
True indeed.
Y'all forget the business of this show. Y'all know about the show, but y'all gotta think about the business.
Hey. True indeed, my brother.
So I did Black Man Lab yesterday, and the question. That was good. The question was, what would you tell your 13-year-old self? So I was going to ask y'all that before we get into our break and get into the news.
Learn how to
fight. What I always say to kids right now is like, learn, figure out what you love, learn how to do it good, and learn the business of it, and you'll never have a job you don't like. That's what I would tell my 13-year-old self.
I tell my 13-year-old self, get your mind right earlier, B. You wasted a good 15 years. Get your mind right. You could have been organizing at 13. You know what you could have done if you started at 13 as opposed to 23 or 24 or 25? What the hell is wrong with you? Get your mind right.
Kim?
Don't go chasing waterfalls. Please stick to the rivers and the lakes.
That song came out a little bit too late for you then, Kim. What about you, Renee? What would you tell your 13-year-old self?
Stick with Spanish.
You going to say more though? That's kind of, what is that?
I mean, I passed on an opportunity to go and like be in an immersion program for a semester, which probably would have helped me be fluent. And it was just, I was afraid. I didn't want to leave home, and and so to this day I regret it though, because I'd probably be fluent if I had done that. And so yeah.
The question is, one of the questions was, what does that benefit looking back? Like, because it seems like it's like, oh, if I would have did this, I would have been better off. It always seems like that. Is it about that, or is it for information for our younger kids to be like, oh, okay?
So for me, the egocentrism of believing that only speaking English is like that's it. That's all you need is like a thing that I feel like only happens here. Like everywhere else, people speak multiple languages. And I feel like also once you learn one language, fluently, picking up other languages is actually easier. So had I made the effort to be fluent in Spanish, I probably could have learned like an additional 2 or 3 languages based on just that ease of learning a language. So I think being able to speak multiple languages is really important. And I think it's a skill that is not presented to people here in any way that it should be.
Intentionally, I think.
Yeah.
Facts. We want y'all uniting and shit.
I was going to say quickly to your, I mean, the larger thing for me is looking back really does nothing for you except as a kind of contemplative mode. And only if that helps you say, well, okay, I could have done that, I could have done this, but now what can I do? Right? If it doesn't lead you to now what you can do, then all you're doing is sort of wishing on a star, because you can't change that, right? But if it leads you to be like, I couldn't do all of that, but maybe now I can do this, or I can do something else that makes sure that the next 13-year-old,
that's what I'm thinking,
or whatever. And I think those are good reflection points.
Yes, they are. All right. I guess it's time to go ahead and get into a break and then come back with some news. There's a lot going on. World War III in front of our eyes right now. So let's take a break and get right to it right here at no other than the Remix Morning Show.
Did you shoot your brother down?
Big up, everybody. Welcome out to the Remix Morning Show. I go by the name of the Ear Doctor. Thank y'all for tuning in and hitting that like button and subscribing if you're new. Also, you go to patreon.com, become a member over there, get footage that's rare, and donate where at blkliberationmedia.org. While you're over there, go ahead and get you some merch, get fresh, get you a nice hoodie, you know what I'm saying? Or a shirt. It's getting a little warm, depending on where you are. Speaking of temperature, let's talk about the weather. Let's get right to it. ATL, I was outside this weekend playing basketball with a t-shirt on. Crazy, right? Well, we got a high today of 62 degrees down here. DC, high of 45 degrees. Just heard it was snowflakes there yesterday. So bundle up. Chicago, 38 degrees high. Next, let's take it to Houston, 82. That's where you need to be if you want to get warm. Hamilton, Bermuda, high of 65 degrees. If you're thinking about going somewhere to go vacation where it's warm, don't go to Bermuda because it's not that warm. Iran, big up to Mashhad, Iran. They got a high today of 50 degrees. Now that was not too hot, but I'll tell you what was hot. The Black History event thrown by Let Us Make Man this weekend, where we had a bunch of kids on stage. This is a whole family, a goon mode. Yes, so they got up there, did their thing. We talk about dancing. Then we had a school, Quilombo, a school, African Center school. They got up there and did some songs and dance for Asada. And they ripped it down. A whole crew of them doing their thing. And it was good to see the youth. Big up to TSK, another African Center school. And big up to all African Center schools out there teaching our kids more than what these bullshit other schools are teaching. All right, with that said, let's get back to it right here on the Remix Morning Show. Let's go. Yeah. Blow. Very, very fun events this weekend. Man, these kids is on it, man. I love the African, the revolutionary spirit in these kids, man. They was on it, drumming, singing songs about Asada. It was dope. I love it every year. All right, but that was my happy.
That was nice.
Happiness before we get into the craziness.
Now, did you paint your walls red? And is this a particular room in the house?
Wow, did we have this conversation before? Does he have what that? Old...
I do have memory issues apparently.
Okay. So let's do it again. Yeah, this is my. You got to be patient with the old people, you know what I'm saying? So yes, this is my dining room. You know, dining rooms, you want to feel regal. So I went with the red, the dark red. And yeah.
Now, is that a light on top? Or is that, what is that on, like, the above your head?
That's a chandelier.
That is a chandelier. Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Yes,
I
yes.
like it. I like it as a room for you kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I've seen the room before, but it just looks a little different for some
Oh
reason.
no, now it's classy. You know, before I had
This is
you know, I had all the record covers on the walls and stuff like that. That's
now it's classy. Okay.
yeah, I'm classy. I went from ashy to classy.
Hey, first of all, I got records on my wall and it's extremely classy. What are you saying?
But you don't have pins in the records going into your wall. That's a little different. You're a little more classier than that.
Oh no, I put them in frames.
It is see classy. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Okay. Hi.
You gonna drop the map? He do it to shut us up.
He should drop the map. It's news time.
Wait a minute, Renee. Renee, if you know that Kim always says what she's about to say, and then I do it. Okay. Pump your brakes.
No, Kim.
Okay, let us stomp the map. Peace and greetings and blessings. Not breedings and blessings. I meant to say greetings and blessings. Hey, y'all, it's the Remix Morning Show Tuesday edition, exclusively here on Black Liberation Media. Peace to the Gauls and the Earths and the Gauls and the Earths that are joining us this morning from the chat, from around the world, from across the country, from DC to San Fran. What's it doing? Appreciate you guys getting up and hanging out with us this morning. I guess on a very somber days following the U.S. and Israeli initiated war that is happening now, that, you know, it's already nasty work. This is March the 3rd, 2026. We got Kim Brown, Kamau Franklin, Renee Johnston, Ear Doctor in the cut. Peace to the comrade Evan, wherever they may be. And remixers, we appreciate you guys getting up with us this morning to talk about the things, because there's no shortage of things. And I woke up this morning and started scrolling the clock app, which I lied and said I was getting off of. That was a lie. But incredible scenes coming from around the region of the Gulf Coast countries. Obviously, we know that Iran has suffered mightily, especially in the opening hours of this war, where a all-girls, I believe, elementary school was targeted, a primary school, where I think the dead now number well over 100 schoolgirls. This is how they began the war. They, the United States and Israel, of course, and Iran has responded wholly in self-defense. I see no issues with the Iranian response, and obviously they are responding in part because of the death of the Ayatollah, who was killed by a military strike. Also, so with the latest that I saw this morning was that 2 drones hit the U.S. Embassy in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. I know that some oil refineries have been hit around the region, including in Saudi Arabia and Qatar. I know there's a smorgasbord of information, so maybe we should just y'all tell us what you know. Renee and Kamau, what do y'all know? Because I know there's so much information swirling and things are moving very quickly.
Well, Kamau, you've got this up, so you want to talk about?
I mean, I was going to essentially do exactly what Kim did, is to show that the extent of this war is already a regional war, where embassies, people have been told from the United States embassies and or American citizens to leave the 14 different Middle East countries. Iran has done what it's needed to do, and I completely agree with you, Kim, in terms of not excusing or suggesting somehow that this war is strictly a United States-Israel war. This is a war in which a lot of the sellout Arab nation governments, particularly in the Gulf, have allowed themselves and or desire for themselves to be used as staging grounds for the U.S. invasion into Iran through the air at this particular stage with Israel, and suggesting somehow that they are not involved, which is ridiculous when they are the ones who are allowing the bases that they rent to the United States or give to the United States to be used as the partly as the grounds in which this war is being waged on Iran. And so Iran is doing everything within its possibilities to preserve itself in terms of striking back and showing that if you cause, they cannot defeat the war machine of the United States. But a classic fight around the bully is if you fight me and I show you that you may win, but you get cut or you get hurt up, you're going to think twice the next time, right? You're going to think 3 times. And I think part of this has been that Iran in the recent past has not shown enough have not been able to retaliate in a way that made the United States scare that a full air invasion would cause damage to the United States. 6 soldiers have been, at the minimum, 6 soldiers, U.S. soldiers have been killed. Folks in other countries, Iran has reached Israel. So there's a lot of things that are moving right now. And the biggest thing in terms of the access of resistance is, can it again do its significant damage during this air campaign? I don't think there's going to be a ground invasion. The United States, Israel do not want to invade Iran, a country of 90 million people. It is not the same of Iraq and or Afghanistan, which they could not even hold after decades of fighting. The United States, I think Iran also has an advantage of, it is not dependent on the military apparatus of other nations. It makes its own weapons, and something that the revolution had done early. And so despite the bombings, some of the places where they assemble their weapons are deeply underground or can be mobile. And so that gives it a hope of staying in this fight longer to cause more damage, disrupt oil shipments, disrupt the oil industry of the nearby Gulf nations, disrupt tourism, shutting down airports. All of those things are within the wheelhouse of what Iran has to do to make this a nasty war, where the region calls for the United States to stop what it's doing because it's enough. I don't think I'll stop here. I don't think the United States is in a position to overthrow the revolutionary government or the cause of mass uprising. The murder of Khomeini is not something that's being celebrated in Iran as the Western media likes to portray. But what we have here is a situation where this is probably the next few weeks are going to be very intense in terms of bombing and striking, because this is the moment that folks have talked about in terms of an invasion of Iran. Something, again, that's been part of a white paper or part of a plan by the United States for decades, under the false premise of stopping Iran from gaining a nuclear weapon. This is only about stopping a resistance to U.S. hegemony in the region and seeing a weak point in which they thought they could go in. And Iran, again, will have to survive this mostly by themselves. There's not going to be a lot of nation states that are coming to the alliance or support of Iran. Iran doesn't have like the same military alliances as the West does. So this is going to be a war in which Iran will mostly be waging by itself in practical terms, except for the help of Shiites and militias in and out of the region. And so Iraq, Hezbollah, a much degraded Hamas, the Houthis, those will be the main warring alliances, or alliances who will also offer some ability to strike back. But this is now essentially Iran's war, in a sense of like, it is no longer a war against Hamas. It's not a war against Hezbollah. This is now directly hitting the primary nation state that's created an axis of resistance. And Iran, the next couple of weeks or whatever are going to be extremely important for Iran to survive, in terms of it being able to continue to strike back.
The spin is crazy. Go ahead, Renee.
The spin is absurd. Crazy is like
Iran is shooting at all of its neighbors. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, we've never seen anybody do
Yeah.
that. They're the
Yeah.
first ones. Are they really the first ones to?
And there's a clip come out if you want to put on our run sheet. There's an interview where apparently they're asking like, well, why are you shooting at the U.S. bases? And I didn't open the clip, but if the quote for what the response is I feel like that answers a lot of questions.
I saw an Iranian professor. He talked about the Strait of Hormuz being closed, and he was like, "Well, it's a danger zone. It's a war zone. You know, we can't have ships going through there." But he was kind of sly about it. But no, it's done. Hey, you ain't running shit through here.
Yeah, I mean, really and truly, part of the issue we have here is there's such a lack of information that comes through to the people here, and then a lot of the information that's allowed to come through is absolute nonsense. And then you have this just absurd convergence of nonsensical things. But I want to hear this. I want to hear this because this looked priceless. The quote.
So for clarity, you said that your missiles cannot reach the United States by design, that you do not want to reach the United States, but you also said it would be necessary as a defensive vehicle that you could if necessary. So to be clear, are you committing that Iran is not and will not build missiles that would have the capability to reach the United States?
I can confirm, yes.
Sir, if that's a red line for you, why is attacking U.S. military bases abroad justified?
But because they are attacking us. They are U.S. military, installations, facilities, bases who are attacking us. We are under attack. Why don't you, recognize this fact? We are under the attack by U.S. forces in the region. So we have every right to defend ourselves. And how to defend ourselves? We attacked, the U.S. bases. This is obvious. This is a very simple fact. And I hope that, and I'm sure that people would understand that. We are not the one who attacked Americans. We are only defending ourselves.
Her earnestness of asking the question.
The question
somehow they're like not
right. Like the question, like, so if you're not going to attack here, why would you attack the bases? For the same reason that I'm only going to punch the person back who punched me, and I'm not going to punch the person standing across the street. Like, so
what gives you the right to fight back against America once it's bombing you? We don't understand that concept. America's bombing you. You do understand why are you attacking back? It makes for them. I mean, that's the propaganda value. People hear that or see that, and they're like, yeah, it's crazy that they're attacking these bases. You mean the bases in which you're firing your weapons into my country? Right. Those bases?
Right. And I heard a clip of what's his face? Is it Hersek? I always forget what his actual name is. He's so stupid. But he was saying,
"Oh, the Israeli president."
No. The head of the military, Hersek. Is it Hersek?
Are you talking about Hegseth?
Hegseth. Yes, Hegseth.
Oh, his clip is amazing.
Oh, he's got a lot of gems that he's dropping of like share, like you really said that out loud and thought it made sense. So one of the things he said, and I don't think I'll try and find it if I can, but I'm also not like inclined to listen to him say it again. But he was basically like, well, we had to attack because we knew once Iran got attacked, they were going to attack us back. So we had to attack first. And I was like, wait, did that math make sense to you? Like before you said that out loud like that? What? That actually, okay, cool. Like literally said that we attacked first because if they were attacked by someone, this magical someone isn't real, but like this magical someone, they were definitely going to attack the U.S. back. It's just.
And I feel like that's why the larger lesson for every nation state in the world is, you know what? We need a nuclear weapon. That's, we need a deterrence factor. So it's not the idea that somehow the West, or like France just announced that it's expanding its nuclear arsenal. And again, the other crazy town comments are, so it's only the West that's allowed to have and possess these weapons of mass destruction. And again, not that Iran has them and or was in a position to make them, right? Israel has them, of course, but that, of course, goes unseen or unheard or untalked about in Western media, because Western media is part of the game, right? It's to make you think that somehow it's normal that the United States and the West dominate the world, that their domination of the world somehow is good for you. And so you should want them to dominate the world. You should be applauding when they attack nations that in actuality can't really do anything to the homeland of the so-called United States, because they don't have part of the bluster of any nation is to suggest that it can do things. Iran doesn't have weapons that can reach the United States because it just doesn't have the technology to do it. Now, one day it could, per se, but it's not necessarily they've devoted themselves not to do it. They just can't. So, and that's not, but the United States can and does this all the time, in terms of like, I think people are now making the list of already 7 nations have been bombed by the United States since the presidency of Trump, right? So this all tells people that if you can't defend yourself, militarily speaking, then you are at the whim of fanatics who will, again, don't even have to come up with good reasons. They don't, that's why you could put an idiot like that in terms of a position of power. Because do they need a reason, a valid reason, or something that makes sense? Not really. And the media will clean it up a little bit anyway. So,
But I have to say, what Iran has been able to do and what they are doing, especially in the wake of their leadership being, decapitated, they are letting the chopper sing everywhere. And when I say everywhere, even to the point where those fighter jets, those U.S. fighter jets that were seen, I guess, spinning out of control, or that crash landed in Kuwait, and the military tries to say, "Oh, it was a result of friendly fire." Is that what I'm to believe? Iran is holding itself as well as can be expected. To your point, Kamal, like they don't have any air supremacy to speak of, but yet their missiles and their missile deployment strategy is so impressive, because they are just flooding the zone, to use a overused phrase, sending their older generation missiles in waves to places like Israel and the other Gulf countries, and showing that the Israeli missile defense ain't what our billions are paying for it to be. So sorry for them, but what Iran is doing, I think, is not being reported accurately here. Let me say that, because everything that I've seen reported stateside indicates, Iran is making so many mistakes, and it's like, are you sure about that? Because I mean, they fucking up Dubai, throwing a lot of cinches in their everyday tourism, blah blah blah, whatever they got going on in the UAE, sending major disruptions potentially to the energy markets, which that's the only thing Trump really has to hold his hang his hat on here in the US, in terms of any policies that he's put forth that have been successful. Gas prices have come down, and he's about to fuck that up. Like, that was the only thing you kind of did okay, and now everything is about to be thrown into a chaotic mode, and it definitely gives big echoes. I mean, this is, I guess, what the U.S. empire rhetoric always is like. Yeah, we're going to go in, hit hard and fast, and we'll be out in 4 weeks. 4 weeks, my nigga? Is that what you really think? Because
it started out 4 days was the initial, and I'm sure when they started this on a Saturday morning, the thought was really like, oh, we can get this in and out and be done before the stock market opens Monday morning. And so, part of the arrogance of the West is complete dismissal of the ability for people who they believe are beneath them to have a plan. Mm-hmm. Right. So, they went into this with this idea that they were going to go and they were going to drop bombs and do whatever they wanted. And then Iran was just going to capitulate. They were going to quote unquote, cut the head off. And they were going to be, running in circles without a plan of what they were going to do without Ayatollah. And it was a total... It's totally based on the arrogance of white supremacy. This idea that like, oh, we're just gonna go do this thing, and then everything, by the time the bell rings on Monday, all the stocks will be up and we'll be good to go. And so they're gonna just keep shifting. They'll just keep moving the goalposts as things are going, in order to try and pretend as if this is going the way they want it to go. Right? They're not. When people ask about negotiations and the answer is they're stalling, right? That's basically like you're telling on yourself, because Iran has basically been like, fuck you. We're not coming to the table. Like, you dropped a bomb on schools. We're not coming to the table. We're not having this conversation. Yeah. And so, but that was the last response that they were expecting.
And whereas Iran has already come to the table over and over and over and over and over again to cut deals for a bomb that they were not building anyway. Right. So the only reason they kept increasing their uranium enrichment was because the United States stepped out of the agreement, right? They had an agreement, lasted a year, and then Trump said he basically tore up the agreement. And again, the defense of Iran is, why can't we have a nuclear program, whether it's for civil defense or not? Who are you to tell us that we can't have a nuclear program? Do you have a nuclear program? Yes, you do. In fact, you have nuclear weapons, but Iran had already agreed to give up or reduce its enrichment. It had already agreed to a lot of the so-called desires of the West in terms of saying that they would not have a nuclear weapon. But of course, again, the West, as always, goes further, as Renee says, because of its arrogance, saying, oh no, but you know what, you got to also give up your ballistic weapons. So you mean the only things that stop us from being invaded outright, we should give that up too, right? So those are the things. Like, remember, after the fall of the Soviet Union, spoke about this briefly, one of the major components of the Western Empire, well, after the fall, I should say, of apartheid in South Africa, was to make the South Africans give up, I believe, the 1 or 2 nuclear weapons that the white South African government, which was allied with the United States, was allowed to have. So what they want to do is to make these countries not be able to defend themselves against U.S. attacks. And when you're in a position to do that, right, that's what they try to do to stop you. And again, I agree. I think Iran's had a great strategy so far in terms of trying to defend itself, in terms of making the other nation states around it suffer for its allegiance to Western Empire and the Israelis. So I think that part has been fantastic. I do have to, for me individually, calling out a little bit around, this is not a time of worldwide sort of revolutionary governments or liberation governments. So Iran doesn't have military allies in Russia and in China. And both those nations, particularly Russia, have been hesitant to give Iran fully what it's needed in terms of having air defense systems open and operating. So, until we have a bigger, in my estimation, like a bigger mass movement and a bigger way in which countries can see themselves as also potentially being attacked in this way. And so military alliances become that much more important, that these forever wars will continue, because these forever wars are meant to preserve the United States' right, the United States allies' right to dominate the world.
Kamal, do you have a cat?
Yes, I do. That's a we could
Oh my God, I was about to be like, man, if you don't. All I hear is meow, meow.
That was the funniest.
Oh my God.
How did you get a cat? How did you get swindled into getting a cat?
For real.
The children, we finally gave in to Maya wanting a cat. So
Well,
It's not a bad cat too. It's a little kitten. I might grab it.
What's the cat's name?
Boba.
Boba.
Yeah, those little things
Boba
that I can't
balls.
stand. That's in your
drinks. Who does
your
that?
tea, your ice, your what's the name of that
Ice-
tea?
iced
Bubble tea?
Boba tea.
Not yes, boba tea. But what's the I forgot the name. I order it all the time when I go to Vietnamese restaurants. I know what the boba is, but it's another thing that I order. Anyway, never mind. But yes, I have a cat. Let me go get the cat.
Is it a boy cat or a girl cat?
You don't have to.
Or is
It's
it a
right here.
gender non-conforming cat?
Well, it's faded,
I
so
don't
right
mind.
now it's
I don't
faded.
mind cats when they're not in the room. I like to.
It's faded, so right now it is gender non-conforming. So,
Okay.
but it's a girl cat.
Well, let me take a break here before you do something. Oh my god!
Is you got her? Is she litter box trained already?
Yes, he is.
Oh, look at smart cat. Okay.
So, speaking of talking to our 13-year-old self, what not to do. When was look at this
Don't put
little
that
rac-
relaxer in your head. That's
Look at
the other advice I would have given myself at 13-year doctor.
Look at this little raccoon. Raccoon.
Where did y'all retrieve this cat? How did y'all come to find this cat? You went to the shelter and got it?
No, there's this I guess there's a system of foster caring for the cats. So this white lady who had this huge house, huge house, and then this section of this huge house where she fosters the cats, there's like 30 cats.
Oh shit.
It's like, yo, you get those looks and hoping she don't see it. It's like, this would be a nice place if you didn't have 30 fucking cats all up in here, like running around like crazy. So she fosters the cats, and so yes, they come already trained, which was needed. Although, I'm discovering how easy cats are compared to dogs, the ones that I love better. So yeah, I know I did. Yeah, I didn't see the Dr. Evil.
Yeah, we see.
I did.
They said it in the chat room.
I thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah.
All right, let's please take a break right here and come back on no other than the Remix Morning Show. Damn it, wind it. I believe it's time for a remix on the remix.
It's a blessing to see people with their heads up to the sky. 'Cause honestly, for the same people, life can be so real. I'm amazed by all your strength, and I'm grateful you come through. Yeah. So I take this time to stop for a moment and show my gratitude. But you are my lighter in the air for you. I see what you're doing and I see what you go through. Put my lighter in the air, the truth is you're beautiful.
All right, I'm gonna take you to a time and place. Let me take you back to the year of 2014 with Molly Music. Name of this album is Molly Is. Name of the song is Beautiful. With an ear doctor on the beat. Alright, hit that like button, subscribe if you're new to the channel. Go to patreon.com, become a member over there, get footage that's rare, donate where at blkliberationmedia.org. Show your love, share. You can also drop something right here in the chat room. We definitely appreciate that. And if you got a question, we'll get to that question a little bit quicker when you drop some change on there. All right, with that said, let's get to it right here on the Remix Morning Show. So when I said you talk to your 13-year-old self, well, when did Trump get back in office? Last year?
2024.
Would you tell your 24 self to vote for Kamala? I mean,
no.
Listen to me. I mean, right
No,
now we know your boy is doing a lot of stuff to escape these files. Kamala
no,
was not in the files, so a lot of this war and all this stuff is going on is him getting away
false.
from these
That's
files.
false. That's
He'd
false.
have, he'd have been getting away from him anyway.
Right.
Yeah, that's him. But I'm just saying, as in, will we be in these wars and all this stuff
Yes.
right now? Oh,
Yes.
I don't think we would. I'm just saying, come out.
Shit.
Would we?
I'm not saying I would have voted, but I have I'm not as strong on the argument as I once was. I think some of the stuff that's happening are distinctly right, overtly right wing Republican. It's not that obviously Kamala wasn't going to be any friend to Iran. It wasn't like she was going to continue. But do I know if there was going to be a full on invasion or a full on air war? Not sure. I'm not sure. I can just say that yes. So I'm a little more open to the discussion than I was earlier.
Isn't
only
he doing this
reason-
because of the files? A lot of this because of the
No.
files?
I don't know about that. I don't think it's because
No.
of the
Okay.
files.
No.
I just think I think he's a maniac, and I think the people around him are maniacs, and they're trying to establish their gravitas as like warmongers who can dominate the planet. You know what I mean? I think it's an ideological position, not a let me escape the sex files position.
And I also think that to fully put, and we have a guest who's actually going to be talking about some of this, so but to fully put it on, we're just going to, they're doing this, for what, like, we're missing out the point that Israel, which has always been allowed to hide its nuclear weapons, wants to be the only place that is holding nuclear weapons. So a part of this attack on Iran is because Israel is trying to get rid of Iran. That path has long been set. So there is no reason. The reason that I am not at all like, oh, this would never be happening if Kamala was in there is because Kamala was fully on board with Israel. So had Israel decided that it was going to do exactly what it's been doing, she wouldn't have stopped them either. And so what is to say that like that's the part of, yeah, I just.
All right. Well,
Anyway,
let me
we have a guest who has a better analysis, I'm sure, than I do on it, because I'm just frustrated with the whole fucking.
I see. Breathe, Renee. Breathe. Let me get off screen so we can bring on our guest.
Y'all want to bring on the guest? Y'all want to do that? Why don't you do that screen where you bring on the guest screen with the gold? Oh, who's going to do the intro?
Morning.
Oh, don't, Austin, you can't talk yet. We got to do an intro. We got to do this professional like. Good morning, Remix Morning Show. Thank y'all for joining us. Over 320 folks here. We have a special guest here from Black Alliance for Peace, Brother Austin Cole, who's here to talk about some of the work and statements that BAP has put out on this war on Iran. So it's a pleasure to have you, Austin. Now you can do it.
I appreciate the applause. No, it's a pleasure to be here as always. Kamal, thank you.
Okay. How do y'all want to start? I don't know. Renee put herself.
Well,
did you have some questions?
Well, I mean, I guess why don't we start with the statement, because that is in part how we actually started having this conversation. So I will drop this in the private chat, Kamal, so you don't have to search for it if you want to pull that up, because BAP did release a statement condemning the current war and what's happening in Iran.
Sure. I'll bring it up, and Austin, you can start if you want. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, as people know, this past Saturday, the U.S. and Israel launched another, war against Iran. It's not the first time, right? I think hopefully folks remember the 12-day war that was launched against Iran last year, and the ongoing kind of economic sanctions, right? Economic warfare against Iran, and the war that's been going on against them since 1979 as well. So this really, this does feel a little bit different, right? This obviously comes on the heels of the U.S. bombing Venezuela, kidnapping President Maduro and Celia Flores, It comes on the heels of the U.S. threatening Cuba and really trying to choke them and take away their access to oil. And so even some of the same, some of the same fleet that was in the Caribbean and outside of Venezuela that participated in that attack is now outside of Iran, right? So it does feel a bit different, right? That is different than the bombings that have taken place in the 12-day war that took place last year. And really, with this current attack, this current war, the US and Israel are trying to destroy any semblance of national sovereignty that Iran has. They're trying to, as they say, take out, the quote unquote regime. And doing that by, murdering the Ayatollah Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran, as well as attacking, as folks know now, and murdering over 100. I believe now the death toll is like 115 schoolgirls, and in addition to several hospitals, other schools, and so really trying to destroy Iran's infrastructure and the people's will, right, to resist and survive. And so, like we said in the statement, this is not, a lot of the propaganda that has been moving and that they've been really aggressively pushing around, around women's rights or the right of people to protest in Iran, or sort of these kind of false flag attacks and all of the the death of protesters in Iran, who actually the protests started largely because of the sanctions against Iran and because the country's, the government's, challenges in supporting its people because of the sanctions that have tightened the country, that have really tightened things in the country. But this intervention, this attack, this war, right, this imperialist and Zionist war doesn't serve anybody except for the U.S. and Israel and their Western allies, right? It's not. We know that it's not to provide democracy or freedom or development to the people of Iran, right? It is to further kind of tighten the noose around anybody who opposes, complete, as the U.S. calls it, full spectrum domination. And it really represents just, on another sense, a continuation since the beginning of the genocide in Gaza of kind of the just complete and utter uselessness of the quote unquote international community in the face of these types of conflicts, right? We've seen that the UN has been completely useless, right, and unwilling to do anything, right? The UN Security Council. I mean, we saw Melania Trump yesterday presiding over that, right? Which is kind of like I don't know if folks saw that, but it's kind of like a surreal moment
at the UN Security Council.
Yeah, so the U.S. Melania, they sent Melania to be kind of like the ceremonial opening and closing of the session. So it's reaching levels of unseriousness and surrealness, right? That are a little bit unparalleled, right? That we've maybe only seen in TV. My wife was actually telling me that, was reminding me that this exact thing happened in House of Cards, in the show that people used to watch, and people were like, that's so unrealistic. And now here we are, right? Like, and so I think that all of that doesn't show, I'm sympathetic to the people that say like, this is like the acts of a deranged man because we're all trying to make sense of it. But I think what it really shows is that the US is imperial hubris, right? The US believes that they are in complete control of the globe, that there is no one, there's no country that can, there you go. There is no country that can sort of push back against them, and they can do whatever they want. And that is kind of the point of full spectrum dominance, which has been the goal of the US since about 2000. Right. And so explicitly in those terms, even though we know before as well, that was also the goal, maybe in less explicit terms. So all that to say that I think a lot of these attacks, this kind of showboating by bringing his wife out into the UN Security Council, doing all of these things, is really a reflection of their hubris that, you know, we can do whatever we want and y'all are going to listen, right? And what Iran represents is a sovereign country that has the will and, at least for now, the firepower to say no, right? And that's why, you know, they have to try to take them out, right? So really our statement, I think, is just a reflection that, you know, people, regardless of how you feel about some of the internal contradictions within Iranian society, right? US imperialism is the greatest enemy of human life and of planetary life and health, you know, in our time, right? And Iran, the Islamic Republic of Iran, and the Iranian people are, you know, one of the few people and nations that are actually putting up a credible resistance to that, you know, death dealing machine. So supporting them and being in solidarity with Iran at this moment is really imperative for all, you know, people of conscience globally.
Yeah. No, thank you for that as a beginning. Like, I think you're so right that, but I think somebody said it in the chat, like you want to describe the craziness of it, but at its essence, it's U.S. imperialism, right? And I think even as we talk through how extreme, what would be the most extreme version of that U.S. imperialism under whatever so-called leadership, whether Democrat or Republican, it's all U.S. imperialism. It's all meant to continue the domination of the United States and Europe on the global scale, again, of stripping resources and stopping people from creating alternative systems in which they are not in control of and or the leaders of. And then, like you said, Iran is, you know, China represents a certain type of an example, but again, China, I think it's clear, although China is trying to provide some support or help through satellite imagery and through statements, China is cutting its own deals. China is not at risk because of its nuclear arsenal and size of its military of any invasion whatsoever or any air war against it. And so of nations outside of so-called superpower status, Iran was an example of a medium-sized nation offering a resistance strategy, right, that we have not seen for a long time, that continued since the fall of the Shah in 79, the displacement or the liberation of the country from the Shah in 79 up until now. And again, I think part of this is them seeing sort of a weakness because of the continued damage that they've done to some of the access, and then attempting to take advantage of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what do you see? Oh, I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
Peace, Austin. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. In terms of like how we as somewhat awake folks on this side of the political spectrum, like how do we explain all this to our people who are watching regular ass news and are getting the amazing propaganda that is coming from America when it comes to the reasons and what the long-term implications can be for this engagement in Iran? Like, how do we make sure our folks know that Iran is not the boogeyman? Iran is not the reason that you can't afford housing. Like, our folks sometimes have a tendency to get real patriotic and will root for USA. And it's like, well, wait a second. You know, we have more in common with the Iranian people who are facing bombs as we do with Palestinians. But sometimes the messaging can be very powerful when our people are hearing, well, the regime was terrible. They had this, you know, ballistic missiles and they had this, and well, we had to go in and do something. What else was we going to do? I hear all those talking points being parroted back to me by some of our own folks. So how do you advise against the depropagandization? Ear doctor, help me out. The depropagandization of our people when it comes to this latest American imperialist intervention.
Yeah. Well, we're maybe contributing a little bit here to that, but I think I'll start maybe with a story. I was actually in Memphis this weekend, and I was walking on Beale Street, and it was three brothers outside of a bar talking about bricks. And you know, I was walking with my wife, and I was like, "Oh, these guys are talking about bricks," and she was like, "What do you mean?" And I was like, "No, Russia or Brazil, Russia, India, China." And so like people are talking about things, right? The next day, Iran or the US and Israel attacked Iran. And I was hanging out with my cousins and then hanging out with other people. And people at this restaurant were talking about the war on Iran, right? And they were not saying it in the way of, we are so like, yes, America, you know, go, you know, USA, all these other things that I think in the past maybe people have been sort of swung up on. I think the trajectory of things that have happened over the last 9 months in particular, maybe, or over the, you know, since Trump has come into office, and in particular the interplay between domestic repression here and the global imperialism and the acceleration of that abroad is making the connections for people. I mean, when Trump, when they took Maduro, kidnapped him, Trump explicitly said that they're doing this in the same way that ICE is kidnapping people, right? And said that, and you know, he said it in a positive way, obviously, right? But they're making those connections for us, right? And so I think it actually makes our job in some way a little bit easier, because people are saying, why in the hell are we in Iran, right? Why did this ship go from Venezuela to Iran? You know, I think to your point about the propaganda apparatus, we do have to break through that. But I think it starts by, or I think we continue doing that by engaging people in sort of small steps and questions of things to consider, right? To ask what do you actually know about Iran, right? When people say, well, I know that they keep their women in, you know, locked up and whatever. Well, did you actually know that in Iran, you know, Iran has the highest rate in the world of women in STEM, right? Women engineers, women scientists, right? That I don't have the exact percentage in my head right now, but a great majority compared to the US, right, of women are actually able to achieve higher levels of education and able to work, you know, for themselves in advanced fields, right? I think it's about having some of those really kind of clear and concise things that can relate back to people's experience and their daily life, right? So not to, you know, it's one thing I think, as I was talking about before, to talk about the sort of like grand scheme of, you know, geopolitical power, right? And to talk about, you know, Iran as a sovereign nation and what that means in their defense of, you know, sovereignty for all peoples in the global south, which hopefully, you know, would resonate with people in terms of, you know, African people, Black people, around like what it might mean to have self-determination, right? But that's one thing. But then I think that there is this other piece around, you know, this is, what is Iran trying to do, right? They are trying to provide their people with education, with healthcare, with stability, right? And to not be dependent on someone else, right? Not be dependent on the US, et cetera. And so I think a lot of these same folks, at least in my experience, you know, when you start to talk to them about ideas like, you know, socialism or any radical piece, right? There's immediately a trigger that turns them off, right? Of that conversation, right? Or if you talk about anti-imperialism, but to talk about like people being able to care for themselves, people being able to care for their families, to educate themselves, right? To do all these things, that is fundamentally like what Iran and what every, I think, people actually want, right? They want the ability to be able to determine their own future without interference from a country like the US. And so I think relating that back to sort of people's everyday experience of like, what would your life look like if you didn't have to depend on that job that is exploiting you, right? What would your life look like if you didn't have to worry about, you know, the healthcare, about getting injured and not being able to pay for it, or not being able to find, healthy food for your kids, or worried about all the chemicals that they're putting in the food and the water and the air, for your children. That is the same thing that these people are trying to establish. And so I think that relating in that way to folks is really important. And that also requires developing for us, I guess, or I'll say for me as an organizer, and for other people who are organizers or who want to be involved in that struggle. For us, I think that involves developing stronger relationships with the people in those places, or in places like Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, right? And with movements that they are talking about that in those places, right? What we often get in the US is only the doom and gloom, right? We're only seeing, the most, we're only seeing either the destruction of these places or people talking about how they're trying to take us to nuclear war, right? So or they're trying to acquire nuclear weapons, right? So expanding that conversation, I think, is really, really important. And for me, at least in engaging with my family or with my friends that are maybe, not as aligned, right? Or other people that I meet, I really just like to send them things, particularly things that either I'm in or I wrote, right? Or that an organization that I'm affiliated with, and just say like, oh, like, here you go. What do you think about this? Right? Or to share it like with them. Because I think that none of that stuff happens like immediately, right? But it builds over time. And I think some of the process that I've seen, even, with folks that are closer to me over time, is them, a year ago or 2 years ago saying, like, oh, I heard you talk about this or writing about this. And, it's kind of like, I don't know what's going on. Like what you're doing or what you're talking about seems kind of out there, right? To the point that after Iran was attacked, people are sending me things and saying like, oh, like, this is the type of stuff you were talking about, isn't it? Right. And so I think that engaging in that process as like a process, right? As opposed to hoping that we will change people's minds immediately, but really thinking about like, how can we kind of help people see the totality for themselves as well, right? I think that's really critical.
I think also, and we have to realize, I was going to show this video a little bit of, again, the tremendous sort of propaganda wave that we come under. And if folks remember when Israel started their overt genocide on Palestine, how all of a sudden it became these videos of women soldiers from Israel, the IDF, that started to go viral. And then recently they started making I've been told that these videos of Black women in the military were being used basically as props for basically applauding the killing of the Iran supreme leader. So these videos are all of a sudden viral videos all across the world, and what makes them go viral, right? All of a sudden, these type of videos get a lot of play because folks who control, even more so than before, the social media algorithms start projecting these. And this is what gets into the heads of folks in our community, that we should be celebrating imperialism, celebrating the murder of a leader of another country because your side, what you think is your side, did it. Doesn't matter why they did it or whoever, whatever. And 5 seconds later, those same folks will complain about Trump saying something white supremacists maybe amongst themselves. But once engaged in a larger propaganda model, whether they know it or not, they become tools of that model to say, oh, look at this rainbow coalition of people we have fighting against the so-called oppressive state. So we have to also realize that how these propaganda games or these propaganda industries, how they work on our people, right? How they work to normalize imperialism and white supremacy to the point where for us it's a slow, steady pace that we have to quicken, of course, right? Because we have to get more people to understand what imperialism is, what white supremacy is, and what we can do here in the belly of the beast, as they say, to fight back against it, to make it intolerable, to do our part. And I think that's always one of the big questions for us as radicals and organizers is how do we reach more everyday people? Because, the imperialist game is to do that, in different ways, whether or not it's an overt thing like a Fox Media or the use of viral videos in a TikTok that is now owned by another right-wing white capitalist, right? So.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a challenge. A lot of the things that we're seeing right now, right? We used to, folks, when I was younger, watching the Boondocks, right, and seeing things, and literally some of these same, like, these are literally skits, right, that they've taken and they are pushing out forward, recycling them as like organic kind of content from people, right? Because I think really, again, coming back to your question, Kim, and to what Kamal just said, I think one of the biggest things that we can really do is to help people, like, just to change how they are thinking about how they interpret the world, basically, in terms of seeing immediately something as like a conspiratorial, more of like a conspiratorial, like pulling the puppet strings, versus like it is about power and money, really, at the end of the day. And money as it serves power, right? And so I think when we can really break it down for people about, like, you understand power in your everyday life, right? You understand that if somebody, somebody wants, something from you and has the power to take it from you and is inclined to do that, right? You would want to protect yourself from those things, right? In terms of all the various things we do to sort of keep our families or ourselves or our homes safe, right? From, all these perceived threats and real threats maybe in the world, right? But I think when it gets to when we go outside of ourselves, people don't really understand how to like interpret the actions that are happening a lot of times, right? So it goes down into these kind of like conspiratorial things where there may be a sliver of truth, but people really like latch on to stuff like the Epstein files, which are terrible and show like what power is and does, right? But people have been doing this, long before, right? And so I think, and US imperialism has been running the same playbook back long before Jeffrey Epstein, right? And so I think it's really important that we, like, one of the things as well that we focus on is really getting people to kind of like peel back that onion, like go through some of the logic of like, well, like, what do we like, how do you understand, like, what are you worried about with Iran, right? What are the soldiers actually going to go and do there, right? How did that work out in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Iraq before, in Vietnam, right? In Somalia, in every, in all of these places, right? And I mean, I say this as well as someone who like, I fight these battles internally as well. I have family members who are in the military as well, right? I have, family members from, my family is mostly all from the south of the US, right? Like in a place where the propaganda is so heavy, right? Particularly, I would say, like in the South and in the Midwest, the propaganda around the US military and all these things is very, very strong, right? And so all that being said, I think we can't do that. We can't have those conversations. We can't be engaging with people at that level if we're not really in like relationship with those people, right? Because if we're sort of just dropping in and doing like a little teaching here or there, we're kind of just repeating the same lines to people. But in those, when we are engaging in those conversations, we also, I think, have to be like steadfast in the support of Iran. We can't like waver in like, well, you're right, Iran they're kind of bad, but still, blah, blah. No, like you can't sort of give into that, because that is part of the propaganda you were just naming, Kamal, of like the propaganda that sort of gives that little sliver that allows people to be like, well, I guess it's okay because like they did kind of do that stuff, right? But that's the same stuff they say about us, right? Like, well, they deserve it, you know? Like that's why we got to lock them all up, right? Right. That's why they live in those places, right? So I think it's really important that we don't see these, you know, these like radical statements or lines as like just trying to like show off who is the most radical, right? It's actually like about helping people to really interpret the world in the way that it really is, and then say like, okay, and that means we have to do something about it.
Kim, I pulled up some of your stories. I don't know if Austin has time to stick around or not.
Just,
But if you
but real quick before we do that, is there an ask, Austin? Like, is there a we need folks to do this thing, because I did note it in the statement, so I wanted to make sure that we gave time for you to say it.
Yeah. So I mean, in terms of the ask, I think there's a couple of things. So BAP has, and the North South Project for People-Centered Human Rights have called on people in the U.S. in particular, U.S. and Canada and Mexico, but also throughout the world, to boycott the World Cup, right? And then also to demand that FIFA and the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, ban both the U.S. and Israel from hosting or participating in any international sporting events, right? And so that is really, you know, it may seem to some extent disconnected from everything that we've talked about for some folks, but this is a way that we can organize some level of resistance against the imperialist and Zionist impunity to do whatever they want, right? There has to be some cost, right, for the US and Israel. And we were already moving this campaign long before this happened, but I think this war on Iran, which is a US and Israeli partnership, really shows why it is critical for them for FIFA and the IOC to ban the US and Israel, and also we, you know, calling on folks to, if those games take place in the US, right, to oppose them, right, to come out against them. Iran is supposed to participate in the World Cup, right? Their delegation actually already was not able to participate in the World Cup draw a few months ago, right, which all the countries come and then they see where they will land in the bracket. So there is a really huge question of whether Iran will even be able to participate, right? And there are many other players from other countries as well, saying they will not participate if, you know, this war continues. So that is something that we can do here in the US and in Canada and in Mexico, right, to actually oppose that. The US, the trophy tour for that has already started in Mexico, and it comes to the US in Los Angeles March 24th and 25th, and then it's going to the World Cup trophy is going to tour all around the country into June before the World Cup starts. So that is also an opportunity for people to oppose, you know, this happening, this celebration that they want to happen here, while the US is bombing and attacking other countries throughout the world.
Thank you for that, good brother. Well, I don't. Do you want to stick around, or do you want to make your way out? What do you want to do? Because I like your voice, so I feel like you might be starting something here.
There you go. There you go. Don't you? Don't finish that sentence.
I'm talking to Austin.
Don't finish that sentence. Don't finish.
It's a private. It's a one-on-one. I can stick around for a little bit. Yeah.
All right. Kim, I brought your stories up. Anyone you want to start with?
Well, do you have a total of 3 or you have 2?
I have a total of 3.
Let's go with the one from New Delhi, because I think it's an important perspective that most people in this country are not going to see unless you go actively search for it. So it wasn't just in Iran where people are mourning and are very upset over the US and Israel bombing Iran. Lots of Muslims from across the diaspora are turning up in the streets, and we saw this happen in Pakistan where people were killed outside, I think, the US consulate. But these are the scenes coming out of New Delhi, India. So please, let's get the story.
Paramilitary and police forces there had a violent response. At least 9 people are dead and more than 30 people are injured. Now, as you can see, the killing of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei feels very personal to people here. We have been speaking to them, and they say that this feels like it's the death of one of their own.
हमारे रहबर हैं, वर्ल्ड के रहबर हैं, शिया कौम के रहबर हैं. हमारे घर में ऐसा हुआ कि जब हमारे बेटे का जनाजा निकल गया,
अमेरिका इजराइल को निस्तनाबूद होना चाहिए.
I can't see these protests dying down in the next hours or even days. Now, authorities have urged calm here, but as you can see, people are emotionally charged and just absolutely furious and in mourning. I'm in New Delhi, and behind me are pro-Iran protests. Hundreds have gathered in the capital shouting death to America, death to Donald Trump. And just earlier, there was also the burning of an effigy of Benjamin Netanyahu. The people here are furious at the killing of their spiritual and religious leader. It's not just Delhi, it's tens of thousands of people in Indian-controlled Kashmir. It's thousands across the border as well in Pakistan. Earlier, we saw 500 people descend upon the US consulate in Karachi. They breached the perimeter there and set the building on fire.
Yeah, we getting that? Is this CNN on that, everybody? Any MSNBC, they on that?
So, yeah. So it's I'm glad she said Pakistan, because there was actually a question in the chat about what's happening between Pakistan and Afghanistan. And I think people need to understand the connections also with that. And we don't have a whole lot of time, but just so people know, when the US, quote unquote, pulled out of Afghanistan, and you got to make sure you leave those quotes in there. One of the things was a base that is located in Afghanistan that Trump decided they wanted to take back over, and Afghanistan was basically like, no, like you left it, it's ours now. And they're utilizing Pakistan as a means to try and subvert that decision so they can take over again that that base that they left. And so it was, for me, heartwarming to see the Pakistani people come out to say, you know, like, we're not in support of this madness going on in Iran, because I think the US media is also trying to present this idea that Pakistan stands with the US, and that's also like not, it's not. So many of these stories miss the actual people. Just like, you know, when people speak of the US, they speak of the US as if, you know, a lot of people in the US stand behind what the government does, when the reality is, like, you have these forces that are making decisions and doing things, and it has little to do with what the people want, which is why you have so many people rising up all over the world. And I think people need to also be clear, like, you know, the martyring of Ayatollah, like, this is massive for the Muslim people, right? Like, he was like, if we're going to compare it to something, and it's probably not a great comparison, but it might be the only thing that people would really understand, it would be like someone killing the Pope. Right? Like, that's how Muslims feel about this, right? Like, if someone killed the Pope, the response that you would get from the Catholics is the response that you are now getting from the Muslims, because this is not, you know, people are misrepresenting this as if he was only like this one, you know, singular leader in Iran, and it was much bigger than that. And I also just want to quickly say, for the record, and I'll shut up now, that people should also be aware that he was surrounded by his family when this happened, right? So his children, his grandchildren, like, they also martyred a portion of his family. And I don't know how many in comparison to who survives him, but, you know, this is, it's outrageous on every level.
I was going to say quickly too, and again, it's not strictly Shiites, but for Shiite Muslims in particular that go beyond Iran, as you said, you know, one of the largest communities outside of Iran and Iraq of Shiite Muslims are in Pakistan and Iran, and there's been demonstrations in the street. Now, some of these countries, even though they're majority, like Iraq and Iran are majority Shiite, and Pakistan is not, but literally millions of Shiites are in Pakistan, right? In India, literally millions of Shiites live in parts of what's considered India or India-controlled parts of the land. So you're right. The term of this radicalizing people, like the West likes to throw around, this hopefully and should radicalize people to understand the depths of what the U.S. is capable of. And again, you can never leave out, like, Pakistan again is is controlled by Sunni Muslims. This is not a Shiite Sunni issue because Hamas is mostly Sunni. However, the Gulf nations, which are majority Sunni nations, their role in this is despicable, and you can see that their people are, some of them, seeing this as another clear way of showing that their leadership, the so-called leadership, is siding with the imperialists, with the Israelis, with the Americans. Even as they talk anti-Israeli rhetoric, they can clearly see that when things are happening, when Palestinian lives are being lost, places like Jordan, which basically is made up of Palestinians, its leadership, its monarchy, sided with the Israelis. It is siding with the Americans in its war on Iran. So this, no matter how this war ends, this war is not over, because this war will now begin to have other ramifications, and other groups will grow out of this. The militias in Iraq are also on the march. They've also fired in the green zone at various times. And so just like the United States could not dislodge whatever people think about the Taliban from Afghanistan as an indigenous force, which has a much less technology, much less people, a much smaller militia/military, it will not be able to dislodge the ideological commitment of Iranians for self-determination. And so people also have to keep that in mind. So I'd also mentioned the Yemenis and the Houthis, which is somewhat of an offshoot of Shiite Islam. So this, no matter what happens in this attack, which again, I doubt will lead to any kind of ground invasion, but short of a ground invasion, there is nothing that dislodges, from a government entity standpoint, the Islamic, revolutionary Islamic government from control over that landmass. And so all this whistling of what they're going to do and whatever, that's all propaganda. It can degrade Iran, obviously militarily from the skies, but it cannot dislodge a revolutionary government exclusively from military, from dropping bombs on top. And the United States is not prepared to go into Iran. Neither is Israel, a country made up of 90 million people. That's a huge landmass. And so, there's going to be a lot of death and destruction, but there's going to be a lot of outcomes that are going to be unexpected during this time of warfare on Iran.
And I want to say too, one, definitely everything that Kamal just mentioned, and that point around the people, right? There's a reason that we talk about people-centered human rights, right? This understanding that, like, yes, the government is, the Islamic Republic of Iran, the government is what represents the country globally, right? And the entity that governs, right? But there are a people that are actually committed to that ideal, right? To this idea of self-determination, right? National self-determination and sovereignty. And I think that it's something that is so foreign to the US because in this country, we do not have a united national vision on certainly not anything positive, right? I mean, that is part of why the forever wars go on, because every president knows that the best way to get votes, the best way to move up your approval rating is to go to war, right? Because there's not really much else, right, of substance that unites people. And, we can talk about why that is, and it has a lot to do with enslavement and the ongoing colonization and genocide of indigenous people, African people in this country, et cetera, and many other peoples, right, in the war on the working class. But a country like Iran, similar to, in Cuba, has a longer history of a revolution that is trying to achieve within this sort of colonial capitalist world some level of self-determination, right? And that is just something. And so I think it's really foreign that people in not just in Iran but in other countries would also be seeing that and say, not only are we, because to your point, Renee, it's like Muslims throughout the world and other folks as well throughout the world, but in particular, Shia Muslims who do follow, right, and who do see Khamenei, the Ayatollah, as like a pope, right, like figure to some degree, right? But then also even Sunni Muslims, right, who are fighting and who are saying like this is also our fight, and who are crossing sort of that potential divide or that sectarianism to follow that, because they see not that this is the one way, the universal faith that we all have to follow and we want to convert everyone to that faith. No, it's that through their faith and through their faith and through their determination for self-determination, they've actually been able to carve out some semblance of sovereignty in their country, right? And people see that and say, this is a nation that is actually trying to give its people, like, carve out a better life in this capitalist colonial hellscape that is the modern world, right? As opposed to a country like the United States, which is trying to extract as much as it can from its people, right? And really is, in particular, making it very clear now that it would rather have most of us dead and disabled and sick, right? And just be able to take from us. So I think, yeah, you're really, that point about people throughout the world rising up against U.S. imperialism and seeing that, when the Ayatollah talked about the U.S. being the devil and death to America and all these things, it's not the people. They all understand that, right? The people understand there is a difference between the population of a country and the government and the broader kind of superstructure of culture in that country. And that's a reason why during the hostage crisis, they let all the black folks go, right? Because they said, y'all are oppressed in your country. So we're gonna, like, we don't need to take you into captivity. So I think that's a really important point, and important for us in the US to realize how the rest of the world sees this, right? And that they are completely opposed to the US and Israel's actions, not only in Iran, but also in Cuba and Venezuela and throughout the world.
You gonna play the Hegseth clip there, Kamau? But if you're looking at the email with two clips in it, select the one, I guess, that has the news presenter, because they kind of break down Petey's comments, and we don't have to watch the whole thing, but I think one
of them has a woman there in the background that's making comments. Is that the one?
No, then would be the other one. I sent that by mistake.
All right.
Apologies.
No apologies.
Oh no, but Pete Hegseth said some wild shit.
Okay, I'm gonna play this.
Politically correct wars. No stupid rules of engagement.
Oh, please start that from the beginning, because
military. He appears to be abandoning the four headlines from here in Washington that I think are really important. First, a stunning statement from the Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth.
America, regardless of what so-called international institutions say, is unleashing the most lethal and precise air power campaign in history, all on our terms, with maximum authorities. No stupid rules of engagement, no nation-building quagmire, no democracy-building exercise, no politically correct wars.
No stupid rules of engagement, says the man in charge of America's military. He appears to be abandoning the principle that underpins the military doctrine of Western democracies, that you adhere to the rules of engagement in a way that your enemy does not. This is a stunning shift in US military operational practice.
Yes, right there. Yes, sir.
The second headline, which I think articulates so clearly the strain between America and its allies, in particular the UK, and this so-called special relationship. Listen to this.
Capable partners are good partners.
He's talking about Israel there. Then,
unlike so many of our traditional allies who wring their hands and clutch their pearls, hemming and hawing about the use of force.
That's the blunt consequence of the judgment made by the British government that Trump's action over the weekend in Iran was not in line with international law. Starmer said no to the US use of UK bases for the initial attack. The Americans are furious. It is a real test of the special relationship.
Yes, right here.
And the third headline, Hegseth was offered the chance to rule out US boots on the ground inside Iran, but he didn't take it.
Are there currently any American boots on the ground in Iran?
No, but we're not going to go into the exercise of what we will or will not do.
He left open the possibility of this shifting to a ground war, and I think that's hugely significant. And in a separate interview with the New York Post, the president said he won't rule out sending US troops into Iran. Of course, that's kind of the core of Trump's style, never to rule anything out.
Thank you very much.
But to Americans uneasy about all this, Trump told the New York Post, I don't care about polling. I have to do the right thing.
Let me provide a brief update on Operation Epic Fury.
Now, the last thing is the mixed messaging. The core objectives seem to be relatively clear.
First, we're destroying Iran's missile capabilities. Second, we're annihilating their navy. Third, we're ensuring that the world's #1 sponsor of terror can never obtain a nuclear weapon. And finally, we're ensuring that the Iranian regime cannot continue to arm, fund, and direct terrorist armies outside of their borders.
But what's the path to achieve those aims? Who fills the vacuum? Is this regime change, or is it just regime alteration? Or maybe just regime collapse and good luck to the Iranians? None of that is clearly articulated by the president or his team, and there are always unintended consequences.
To the extent that the United States ever adhered to rules of engagement in the first place, it's like, I mean, there's mask off moments, there are hood off moments, and it seems as though this is just the latest mask/hood off moment for the US empire, where any pretense of international allegiances, any pretense of, blah, 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 that's done. We sent Melania to the Security Council to to announce our intentions about things. What are things? Thoughts, everybody? That's your secretary.
Just when I tell you how speechless I am sometimes, y'all, I just can't, like, my level of ability to listen to this dumb shit and take it as anything but dumb shit, but as white people with their caucasity standing in front of a mic pretending like they know what the fuck they're talking about when they're just talking shit, right? Literally, and killing people while you're talking shit and pretending like what you're saying makes any bit of sense, right? To talk about your precision and all of the, you didn't kill a building full of children, and that people will actually let this shit stand, right? That he'd say something like that and no one in the fucking room would be like, bruh, y'all killed 100 children. Where the fuck is the precision in that? Right? I can't, y'all, this is why I can't do politics, because I'd be run out on a rail, because this is the shit that I'd be cussing. I get yelled at. My mother be like, why you curse so much? I'm like, because there's no other words for the level of frustration that I feel with this bullshit. I just can't. So sorry, Austin. Sorry. But
no, I feel you. I will say, I'll try to be brief. I think it was Césaire that said every Christian bourgeois or Christian white man has a little Hitler inside of him, and I mean that they're all showing off their little Hitler inside of them now, right? Or maybe a big Hitler too. I don't know, but that is. I mean, I think that this is a clear, to some degree, it's a gift because they are just. Sort of, they're lying, but they're also just showing themselves for what they are consistently on a ongoing basis. I mean, Hegseth is shameless is way too light. But I think that there is this, this opportunity to really say to people, and again, I'll mention even having family members or other people that I know in the military. And as you said, that's certainly not my anything, but it is their Secretary of War, right? If you were serving in the armed forces, and to say like, this is what you are signing up to potentially die for, that, right, is what you know are potentially putting your life on the line for, right? And I think it's important to really say that, and then also say, and it's actually not any different from what US imperialism has been. They just have gotten rid of all the nice words, right? I mean, Woodrow Wilson was showing Birth of a Nation in 1915 in the White House, right? We know, and we know that every single president, right, has been a war criminal, in particular since 1945, right? And so I think that for all of these things, this really is just like the opportunity to say like, yes, be angry about this, and also know that it's not any different than what was happening, right? What did Kamala say in 2024? That Iran is the #1 enemy of the US, and that she wanted the most lethal military in history. That's exactly what Pete Hegseth is just saying. But he's just saying it, I mean, he is probably a little bit dumber. And so he's saying it maybe a lot a bit dumber. And so he's saying it in maybe more plain ways, right? And he also has that white man imperialist hubris too. So, you know, he's like, I can say whatever I want, basically, right? So they're really at that stage, right? And I really think that we, you know, I'll close with this. I think that all of these behaviors are the behaviors of a imperialist, white supremacist class that believes that there is nobody out there that can stop them and they can do whatever they want, which is exactly the same class and same ideology that ruled this country from 1776 through definitely till 1861, before the Civil War, and then after Reconstruction took back hold over. So it is that same mentality of white supremacist, complete dominance, that I can say whatever I want about these folks and they can't do nothing, right? And so I think I'm like begging people to see that it's the same thing, and especially our people to see that these are the same people, right, that are ruling, and all it takes is one sort of movement to then direct that right towards us, right? I mean, they're already kind of doing it, right? But it is we are very, very close to this war in Iran going poorly and then needing to do something else, right? Or a few people standing up and them shifting the focus, and they're using the exact same words against our people. So I think it's really important that we see this for how ridiculous it is, but also don't make the mistake that it's not also a danger to us.
All right. And on that note, another Remix Morning Show, y'all. Thank y'all for rocking out with us. Austin, we'll see you back on Wednesdays. Yeah, I guess we'll see you back on Wednesdays.
There you go.
With
co-signing on Kamau.
I can't step on Women Wednesdays now.
Oh, no, you can, because sometimes they don't be there.
Women's Wednesdays plus Austin. There we go.
There it is. I mean, I'm there. Hey, so okay, so Renee, what you got coming up this weekend?
So we are going to be talking to Davon Love, because every time Lawrence comes on, I'm reminded that we hadn't been bringing Davon back, also from Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle, and they're doing a lot of work right now in Annapolis. So we're gonna talk about some politics and stuff. And quickly, if y'all don't mind, we are also going to be doing a live show, which I gotta say I'm really excited about. So we decided
who?
Saturdays with Renee. We're gonna do a live show.
Saturday.
So I convinced Njume and Geechee's gonna come up, and we're gonna do a live review crew. And so I'll drop that in the chat. If people are in the area, it's going to be in Newark at Express Newark on March 14th, which is a week from Saturday. And we're going to do the live show, and shout out to CMC for sponsoring it, because they're, that's their space. And so I'm really excited to do the live show.
Okay, dope. Well, big up to everybody that tuned in last Thursday for me and Kim Brown for Classical Breakdown. We did Marvin Gaye. This Thursday, we'll be doing a mini Salt and Pepper.
Salt and
Yes.
Pepper's here, and we're in
Yeah.
the back.
Yes, it is Women History Month, so you will see a lot of sisters getting a shine on this month. Austin, you got anything coming up?
We are a group of organizations actually in the US and Canada is calling for mobilizations in support of Iran and Venezuela and Cuba as well on March 13th, which is Al Quds Day, the last Friday before Ramadan. So if you're in New York, if you're in Philly, DC, but also I think throughout the country, people are going to be mobilizing for that. So definitely a chance for people to get out and to get in the street and to to raise the consciousness and to air that frustration as well. So definitely encourage people to do that and then to join and to get in tapped in with the organizations that are participating in that this kind of national coalition. So March 13th, Al Quds Day.
All right. Well, we're glad, as Ricky said, you're doing real work. I don't know what we're doing out here, but what about you, Kim? What you got coming up? You ain't starting back. I thought this new month. Burn it down, Kim Brown.
Mercury's still in retrograde, so we gotta play it by ear.
All right. Yeah, all right. Well, with that said, we'll be back here tomorrow morning with some more of the Remix Morning Show. Thank y'all for tuning in. Make sure y'all hit that like button, subscribe, and do what you're supposed to do. Get out there and make something happen. All right. With that said, we out of here. Remix Morning Show. Peace, y'all. Black Liberation Media is a collective of Black and African organizers, journalists, academics, and media personalities serving Black and African masses seeking to further grow in their understanding of themselves, their histories, and the African world through entertainment and news. Please continue to like, subscribe, and donate to the channel so we can further serve you and liberate our people. You can also go to blkliberationmedia.org, get some merchandise, and also become a Patreon member and a member from the YouTube. Please do what you can, share, and show your love as we will show ours for you. Black Liberation Media.